The Pushy Broad from the Bronx welcomes to my show a person who is an author, an entrepreneur, a singer and songwriter. And that was kind of evident in the fact that he was doing a little dance to my theme song. So I already like the dude, okay? Songwriter from New York, an original Bronx boy, which I'm already thrilled with, founder of Men on the Move, which you're going to talk about because now I have a whole new moving company. And he's an advocate, especially, we're going to talk about at the end of this program, of autism awareness and support. And he has served as the chairman of the Long Island, New York chapter of Autism Speaks. He's also a founding board member of Spectrum Designs Foundation and a founding member of the David Center. He tells us that his new book, Live a Little Better, which we're going to talk about today and is on Amazon as we speak, is more than just a memoir. It's raw, heartfelt. It's a look at addiction, family dysfunction, and above all, rising above adversity to discover the strength within. The Pushy Broad from the Bronx welcomes my guest, John Beyer. Good morning, John. How you doing?
Good morning. How you doing? That was quite an intro. Thank you.
You're welcome. So here's the book, guys. Those of you watching the streaming today, Live a Little Better, which I love. First of all, you're a Bronx boy who moved to Queens, right? Just tell me a little bit about that.
Well, that was a point in my life. The book starts with moving day from the Bronx to Queens into Left Rack City. And that was a bit of a fall from grace because we lived in the good section of the Bronx called Riverdale. My father was doing very well at that point for a while there in business, but unfortunately his alcoholism was taking over and it was a fall from grace. And they were separating. So we moved from the sprawling 3-bedroom co-op on Kapok Street in the Bronx to my two sisters and I, my mom, to a tight 2-bedroom apartment. And I slept in the foyer area. When you walked into the apartment in Left Rack, you actually, the front door actually hit my bed every time. Yeah.
It was a wake-up call every morning, right?
Yeah, it was a wake-up call,
It's so funny you say that because my aunt lived on Kapok Street for 40 years. So we really do, we probably have been ships passing in the night in some manner, shape, or form. I love the fact that you say it was the migration because people in New York City understand that New York City is 5 boroughs, right? Manhattan, Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens, Staten Island. And we move occasionally from borough to borough. So here we are, Bronx boy moving to Queens, which was somewhat respectable. Left Rack City, for those of the people in Seattle that don't know anything about Left Rack City, was kind of a housing development in the borough of Queens, New York. And people moved there for a variety of reasons in the early 60s and 70s. But you, of course, moved for several reasons, one of which was the fact that your parents were, you said, separating. And also, both of your parents were... did have
both were bona fide alcoholics.
Okay,
both, so yeah, my dad was an everyday drinker. My mom was a textbook periodic alcoholic.
What does that mean to you, a textbook periodic alcoholic? What does that mean?
Long periods of being drunk. I mean, literally for weeks, and then being able to sober up, and be responsible for a couple of weeks.
I see. Okay. So that's a very real thing. And I want our listeners to understand that it doesn't necessarily mean that you're an alcoholic if you drink every day, all day. It means that when you drink to excess, right? And then you can stop for a couple of weeks. So let's just encapsulate this a little bit because you talk a little bit about in the book. Just give us a few key points of the kind of advice you would give to children growing up in an alcoholic household. How did you survive?
Well, I don't know how I survived.
Well, enough to write the book. So just some key things.
Yes. Today I would tell somebody, tell adults what's going on in your house. Tell friends. Know that you're not alone and not to be ashamed of it if you're growing up in that environment. When you share your problems, you're giving half of them away right away. You feel better just by sharing them, and people will, there are resources, and my best friend's mother helped dramatically. She saw the handwriting on the wall. My father was no longer in the picture, and my mother was, good a couple of weeks and horrible for another couple of weeks. And they used to see each other at the beauty parlor. And but she could see what was going on, and she tried to help me dramatically. So you let people know what's going on.
That's really very important advice. Do not keep it silent. Speak up. Verbalization, which is very, very cool. So, talk about early life and this book. First of all, what made you write it?
My daughter made me write it, actually. My best buddy told me about a book, another book, and I read that book, and they made it a movie by J.R. Moringer called The Tender Bar. And I'm reading a passage in the book, and it was describing my childhood in a bar, because my father was a bartender. After he lost his business, he became a bartender and a local bookmaker and gin mill, and he had quite a photography business. Chester Studios in the Bronx on Tremont Avenue. And he took the school photographs for the entire New York City school system at one time and drank it all away. So I'm reading this one passage about how the little boy in the book is waiting for his father to take him to a Met game, and he never shows, and he's waiting and waiting, and he's calling his mother. And the same exact thing happened to me, except it was a Yankee game. And every time I would buzz the buzzer upstairs to my mother, I could hear her getting increasingly more drunk every time, with every passing half hour or an hour while I was waiting for him, and he never showed up. It's one of the most painful memories, repeated occurrence memories of my childhood.
About how old were you?
10 years
So
old, little boy.
this goes way, way back, and you see that,
Yeah.
and you feel that, and that trauma comes back to you. And it is happening in families all across the world. So these were certainly some very difficult stumbling blocks. You said that your daughter wanted you to write the book. What'd she say?
Well, I was telling her about the other book and how I was effusive about it, and I thought it was so inspiring and really very good book. And she just suddenly turned and said to me, "Dad, you have an incredible story to tell. You have to write this book." And if you know my daughter, she's freaking relentless.
So the badgering brought this book, right?
Yeah, she's
Live a
my
little
daughter,
bit.
is what she is.
There you go. Okay. So it was
And
love and badgering. I get
she
it.
badgered me for months, and then I hired Glenn Plaskin to help me write the book, and it is meant to inspire people and let people know that there are choices and that you can live a little better. And live a little better comes from the billboard that was on the expressway that advertised the housing development that we moved to. And that's where that came from.
Really? So Left Rack City's billboard was live a little better. And that was a great slogan. That's really amazing. It actually kind of coincides with the things that we talk about in getting a little better every single day, right? One day at a time. And the Japanese Kaizen method of let's just be 1% better per day, right? And living a little better. So tell us a little bit about the kind of environment was in Left Rack City and how you grew up. And also, I know our listeners want to know how you became involved yourself in recovery and what happened.
So Left Rack itself was incredible. It was a community, and there's a bond, and I'm still friends with those people today.
That's amazing.
And I moved in on April 20th, 1968. That's the first sentence of the book. And we're still buddy. I was 8 years old, and that makes me 45 if you can do the math. 65. I'm kidding.
I wasn't doing the math. Trust me.
I can't pass for 45.
I understand.
But we're still friends today. It was a sense of community and a brotherhood and a kinship, and we're comrades today. That was a positive of it. I only lived there 7-8 years. It was amazing. I do want to point something out to you. On the bottom of the book, of the cover, is a picture of that original billboard. This photograph was taken by my daughter in a moving car on the very busy Long Island Expressway, Interstate 495. And she took that picture while the car was moving doing 15 miles an hour in traffic, as you always have on the Long Island Expressway. And I had no idea really what she was doing. I was driving, and that billboard stayed there for decades. And 2 weeks after she took the picture, the billboard went away.
Wow. Well, we would say that's a God thing. And I also cannot believe that. And I can't believe that you were actually doing 50 miles an hour on the LIE
No, it was
because nobody
15,
can.
15. It
Oh,
was 15
15,
miles an
one
hour. It was
five.
15 miles an
Okay.
hour.
Right. Because that's just about as fast as you can go. That's for sure. No question. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your struggles in substance misuse. Right. Let's
You know,
get it.
I just drank differently from the beginning. I don't know if
What
it's
does that
genetic.
mean? Wait, John. What does drank differently mean?
I drank differently from my friends. So one of the
Okay.
first times I drank, we were doing shotguns of beer in the stairwells of Lefrak City, and you know what a shotgun of beer is.
Yeah.
You pop the top and let it rush down
Yeah.
after you've opened the other side of it, so you get a buzz. Well, we're doing this. We're 12, 13 years old. We're doing it in the staircase, and I don't spill a drop. And my two buddies that I'm with, they're spilling it. I'm trying to catch it, and everybody gathers themselves, and I go, let's get the tall boys. And they're still gasping for air. So I drank differently from day one.
Okay.
That's
I
what I mean.
understand. I hear you. How old were you?
I'm about 12, 13 years old. I come from the
Okay.
school of more. I want more.
Yes. I understand completely. No, my friends that I know from high school, they would say, look, this happened and that happened and this happened. And I would say, I don't remember that. And they would say to me, Ellen, we did drugs. You did more. Right. I mean, that's it, the whole thing. Okay. So let's go to the point where you felt you hit bottom.
Yeah. So I had a girlfriend. Her name is Amy. And I was in bad shape. I was tending bar. I'm in my mid 20s. I just turned 26 years old. I'm that bad where I'm having GI series done, and the doctor thinks that my stomach looks like I'm 80 years old, and I'm 26, and I'm already feeling the physical effects of it. I'm a full-blown alcoholic, puffy, red, eyes are maybe not white anymore, and I came to. The clock said 6 o'clock. I pulled back the room darkening shade, looked out the window. The sky was a medium blue, and I did not know if it was AM or PM. Can you imagine that, not knowing if it's AM or PM?
Yeah, because somebody who's overdosed on drugs and spend the night in a hospital filled with Thorazine, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Drinking may not have been my thing, but in drugs, I had no sense of reality or whether or not I was in a Roger Rabbit movie. I completely understand.
Yeah.
So, was that the moment you said, I got to get my behind into an
Yeah.
Alcoholics Anonymous?
That day, that I knew of AA because my mom had tried it many times, and I had an uncle, a long lost uncle, who did get sober. So I knew of this thing, Alcoholics Anonymous, and I called, and I went to my first meeting that night, March 31st, 1986. So yeah, and I came home back to the apartment, and my girlfriend Amy was there, as she always has been and still is today.
So, you're
um,
celebrating 39 years?
I'll be celebrating 40 years in March.
Yes, I just celebrated 40 years, September 4th. So I'm right there with you. So fantastic. Okay. So for you, right? And one of the oldest treatment modalities in the world for saving our lives in recovery is Alcoholics Anonymous. And then after that, Narcotics Anonymous. Would you say that AA saved your life?
Unequivocally. I came home, and before the door closed behind me, I said our whole lives are going to change. And I never looked back. And they did, and all for the better.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So are you please tell us a tiny little story from the book that makes people want to get motivated to do what you did?
Well, the thing about the book that I would tell you, and you touched on it, and I look at the book, and I hope I made it clear. It's ironic that I start out with live a little better, and that's from 8 years old. right? And then in my life, I get sober and it's one day at a time. And then later on in the book, you find my wife and I, I mentioned two children, and I have my son Gregory who has autism. And when you have autism, you learn it in these discrete trials. You break them down to these little discrete trials, these little things. Like when we were teaching him the word apple, he wouldn't speak, so we had to teach him for apple. So you're breaking it down to these little pieces. Everything in life can be achieved incrementally is the underlying message there, throughout the book in those areas of in every area of life. Life comes at us all, like my son's autism and other things, death. I mean, disease. Health issues. But a day at a time, you can handle them all too.
And that's a wonderful message, surely. And I'm extremely glad that you brought it to us. I also like the fact that your philosophy is really interesting and has something to do with your current profession. Okay, men on the move. And one of the things that you say is that life and maybe like recovery, like we're talking, is like a moving company, right? Because we move from place to place. So I really love that. I mean, explain that a little bit more.
Well, the one thing I noticed that carries through with everything that I do is that when I was on the trucks doing the actual moving, I'm too old to do that now. I'm a bit of an alpaca, as they would say.
Well, 45 years old, I don't blame you. I mean, you
So,
aren't.
so um, is that you you take something from point A to point B on a moving job. You have to put it on the truck. It goes. You have to pack it the right way and drive over, and then place it where people want it. And you have to do that with everything in that house. Everything. And that's a daunting task when you look at it one piece at a time. It becomes manageable with help and doing it correctly, with a routine and a process in place. So taking something from point A to point B and finishing it became this subconscious mantra in my head in achieving things that I wanted to achieve in every area of my life.
So actually, sometimes this is a therapeutic term for that. We called it chunking it down, right? Making small tasks out of large situations or
Mm.
large goals, right? Because otherwise, for us, it makes it really overwhelming. The whole idea of one day at a time and all of those cliche expressions in recovery are cliche because they work. They actually work. And just like keeping it simple, tackle what's right in front of you. I always tell my clients, wherever your feet are, that's where your brain has to be. Look down at your feet, center yourself, tell yourself where you are right here, right now. And that's where you go from there, one step at a time. But I also really love the fact that we move, right? We have phases in our life. We move from place to place. We move from task to task. We move throughout the day. So, what made you decide to do this moving company? Tell me a little bit about your company.
I drank my way into that.
Oh,
A drinking buddy of mine was
successfully,
in the
I
bar.
guess.
I'm between jobs. I'm still drinking, and he says to me, I didn't have a job, and he says to me, "Do you want to work on the moving truck tomorrow?" And I wound up saying yes, and I went on the truck. He goes, "You're a smart guy. You should start your own company." After just being there a few weeks, he made me foreman, and then he pushed me to start my own company. We worked together for many, many years. He and I are still very good friends. We speak every other day. And that's how I got into it. My drinking buddy, John, who's in the book, he has quite a story himself.
And he's in recovery now, too, by the
Yes.
grace of God. Okay. So, is Men on the Move a local company or a national company?
We go up and down the East Coast. We're probably the largest independently owned um, moving company on Long Island, though.
Okay.
First generation for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
if anybody from Seattle this morning is making a move, there's a good moving company out there. Now, tell me a little bit. You've been mentioning your friends along the way. Have you had lives different from your friends? I mean, do you have the friends still, or are there friends that didn't do as well as you in recovery?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few of us that have done extraordinarily well, and we're still together. But we hang out with the guys that are, that just did okay too. And one's a retired cop now, and this one did this, and this one did that, and we're still all very much in touch with each other, and we get together 5, 6, 8 times a year. Yeah.
I want to touch just briefly because we only have about 3 minutes left, but I want to touch just briefly on your work as the chairman of the Long Island chapter of Autism Speaks. Tell us a little bit about what's going on and how you serve the community.
Well, Autism Speaks is quite an organization, and they focus a lot on research and legislation to help families across the country and bring awareness to autism. I'm more involved with another organization in the last several years called Spectrum Designs that my son-in-law founded. My son Greg went to a camp, and this young man named Patrick came over from Wales on the Camp America program. And long story short, he winds up meeting my daughter. And as the story goes, they got married, and I have a beautiful granddaughter as a result, with another one on the way. And he started a nonprofit called Spectrum Designs that makes hats and embroideries, and he employs 40 plus people on the spectrum locally here on Long Island. And it's he's knocking it out of the park. He's something else. Patrick Bardsley from Spectrum Designs.
So this is a company that employs autistic people.
Correct.
That's a
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful resource. Fantastic.
Yeah,
Okay.
80 something percent are unemployed. So this gives them jobs, gives them something to do. It's wonderful.
Sounds fantastic. How has your recovery benefited from working and being involved with an autistic child as a parent, and then your work? How do you strengthen your recovery every day?
I still go to meetings. I still go to 4 meetings a week, probably at a minimum. I enjoy going. They're my friends. So that there's still a foundation there, and I love going. I would tell you that you practice the 12 step, you have to practice these principles in all your affairs. So when you give back, all I want to do now is give back to the community. It's not about me. It's about giving back. All the proceeds from my book are going to Spectrum Designs. I'm just announcing that here now for the first time. I haven't even told them that. And I'm hoping it makes a lot of money so that they do it. It is a 501(c)(3).
I really hope that as well. The book is called Live a Little Better. It's by John Beyer. You can find it on Amazon right now. Please help give back. John, thank you so much for being with me today. It was wonderful to talk to you. This is the Pushy Broad from the Bronx saying thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. This is Ellen Stewart, the Pushy Broad from the Bronx, saying thanks for listening, and remember, everybody needs a little push.
From the Pushy Broad from the Bronx, New York.